Fan Changyu does not need a cavalry to save her. She is the cavalry. And I think that is Pursuit of Jade, the drama in a nutshell. Hello and welcome to Talk About Drama, where we talk about what's hot and what's not in the drama world. And before I start, I honestly want to say that I don't think I've enjoyed a drama as much as I did watching Pursuit of Jade like in recent times, and I am obsessed with it to the point where I'm genuinely taking notes as I'm watching it, because usually I wait after the episode and I just like write down the things that I liked and that I didn't like, because I don't want to miss details, and it's so well done. And I think one of the reasons why it really stuck with me was because Fan Changyu and Zheng were destined for each other, no matter how the whole thing turned out, regardless of the entire thing, because it was genuinely almost poetic that Zheng got caught in the crossfire of Wei Yan and his quest for silencing Fan Changyu's parents, only for him to be saved by their daughter because the hairpin that her mum gave her ended up in the hands of the guy that she found frozen in ice on one fine day. It's poetic, it's beautiful, and the alternate universe episode, Tibbet basically confirmed it, that regardless of what happened, regardless of whether their parents survived or not, Zheng and Fan Changyu were destined for each other. And to me, that is a good drama. But there's some things that I didn't like, and I guess we'll talk about it. But can I just say, I am obsessed with the way they play around with lighting in the entire drama. Like, for example, like take Wei Yan. He's always lurking in shadows, he's surrounded by night, and even the yellow tones on him are much darker, almost murkier. But during the last episode, I think it was 39, when he's sitting in prison and he's recounting what actually happened, he's lit up by this really soft yellow light. And even though he's sitting in a prison cell, which is supposed to be like this dark and dreary place, he's still got this, it's not a spotlight, but it's shining him from inside out. It's bringing his humanity to the surface, and it's because in front of him is this memory from his youthful days, and he's recounting it. He's recounting his happy days, and he's basically coming to light with the truth and with himself, and he's recounting what happened. And only once he confesses his sins is he finally completely out of the shadows. And the same goes for the bathtub scene where they're basically forming a yin and yang, and then they swap clothes, but the lighting is immaculate, and it's just a game of lights. It's just a game of shadows. When characters reveal themselves, they are literally stepping out of shadows. And then there's this beautiful light, like when Zheng was kneeling in the Shea family's shrine, I think, or was it a mausoleum? I don't know, but when Zheng was kneeling there and he got whipped by Wei Yan, and he's delirious, he's completely out of his mind, and he's imagining his mum standing in front of him and basically telling him, you know, it's okay, let go. And it's that beautiful light that is surrounding both mother and son, because she's not really there, it's his imagination. And then they basically both transform into shadows as the whole thing pans out. And later on, when it goes back to his mum, one second it's Zheng's mum and the next second it's Fan Changyu. And slowly the light comes down, because now he's back to the real world, he's back to the reality in front of him rather than imagining his mum standing. And I think that's a beautiful use of light, because in a way you're distinguishing the reality from his momentarily hallucination. But in lighting aside, I think I was a little disappointed with the writing in the second half, because I don't know, it kind of felt like it was written by somebody else at some point, because it felt a little disjointed. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. Like when Fan Changyu was told that her sister would live a healthy and peaceful life if she stayed by her side until she came of age. And she was like, yes, I'll keep her by my side until she comes of age, because she's all I've got, right? And I'm all she's got. But immediately after that, Chang Ning was carted off to another house miles away from Fan Changyu, and there was absolutely no concern even when the house was attacked by Jimin's people. Like, that's your sister. Like, Fan Changyu left her home. She went around roughing up child traffickers in order to find her sister. And over here, her sister has been attacked by the very guy who was holding her hostage a couple of episodes ago. And she's like, okay, she's fine, it's okay. And she doesn't even mention her. Like, the absolute disappointment I felt, because Chang Ning was in the capital when all the shit went down, and she was very much a part of the story originally. But over here, she was basically written off, and she appeared in like 10-15 seconds in the final episode. Why aren't the kids there? I would love to see the the kids more than the Pig Witches gang or whatever they call themselves. Because I never get this obsession of C-drama writers that they have of giving main leads a ragtag group. Like, okay, don't get me wrong, the general group in Prison of Beauty was actually very well written, but over here they don't really serve a purpose. Like, not to mention that Jin guy was eating up all the screen time and is pining when we could have been watching, you know, Shade Ru, Shade Chi take care of Chang Ning and fight together with Chang Yu in life and death battle. Because if I remember correctly, there was this whole thing of Zheng giving these two to Chang Yu, and once the origins came out, Shade Ru, I think it was Shade Ru, who told Chang Yu that once Zheng gave them in order to stay by her side, they never really expected to return because they're forever Chang Yu's, and once they have been given out, they're never going to return back to the Xie family, even though Zheng has effectively cut off all ties with Chang Yu because of who her grandfather was. Plus, they kind of helped Chang Yu in understanding military dynamics in the books, which I was quite enjoying the different tutors brought in by Li Huan, and basically him getting a taste of her academic delight and her recognizing how she had been much more comfortable and actually had an understanding of what Zheng was telling her, because he understood the way that she learned and he didn't try to teach her his way. He understood how she learned and basically adapted himself. And I think there was this whole thing about this military book that was annotated by Li Huan, and after they've been married and Fan Chang is basically shifted into the Xie family villa, and he finds this book that's been annotated by Li Huan, and he basically gave her as a gift. And she kind of forgot about it because she distributed it to the soldiers, but someone gave her back, and he was so jealous of it that and that was this whole thing. But I am digressing. But the thing is that these guys, they're always running their mouth and just being there, but they don't actually serve a purpose to the story. Like, why am I watching this random guy that has no investment in the story, pining for this lady that he was basically roughing up in the beginning? Like, the only reason why this Jin guy is where he is because Fan Changyi overpowered him and was able to beat him up in the beginning, and he basically saw the light. But had Fan Changyu been a regular girl who would have been overpowered by this Jin guy, it would have been a very different outcome. And not to bring logic into a story, it kind of defeats the purpose of Fan Changyu's rise in the military, because over there she fought her own battle, she learned her own skills, and she went to the top based on her own merits. She earned everyone's appreciation, and there was this whole group of generals that basically admired her, came to respect her because of the way that she fought fearlessly. And over here, it's just like this ragtag group who really respects her because she roughed them up once and they decided to see the light. It didn't really feel like a payoff, and I think the writers were trying to hold on to Chang Yu's Linantan connection by having these guys around, but that could have easily been done by Chang Ning and the Zhao couple. Like, it didn't really make sense. But I did like the little details, like when Zheng went to pay respect to his parents, the secret guards appeared when Zheng entered and were dismissed by Wei Yan, but during Zheng's last few whippings, they appeared again. And I genuinely thought that it was because they thought Zheng would retaliate since, you know, he's been whipped. But given his condition, like, can he really? And then later on, after he gets over his hallucination, we see Fan Changyu appear in front of Zheng, and that is when it clicked. Fan Changyu came into the Xie family shrine, and that is why Wei Yan's secret guard appeared again. They were on guard against Fan Changyu, not Zheng. And because Wei Yan and Zheng were having a moment, none of them noticed her until she appeared in front of Zheng. And I think that was such a nice detail, because you are showing, not telling, because they could have easily put in a second scene of Fan Changyu going to the Xie family villa or her house and basically asking Xie Wu, Xie Qi, where is Zheng? And they could have been like, oh yeah, he's gone to the mausoleum or the family shrine, and she would panic because she knows that Wei Yan's going to be there, and we would have known that, you know, it's Fan Changyu walking in, but we didn't see anything. We just cut to Zheng walking in, and immediately the guards are on guard again, and it's because a female general is walking in, and she can't overpower Wei Yan in close proximity, and that's why they're on guard against her. And the eventual payoff of that scene was Fan Changyu taking Zheng's mum's place, because now he feels safe with her and she's strong enough to protect him. And I think one of the best things that they did was they actually made Zheng say it out loud, how he was a crybaby, and I was absolutely floored, because a male lead who knows how to show his emotions, is self-aware and can be menacing. Please sign me up. Like, he cries right? It's not like secret tears. He cries properly in front of her, and he recognizes his own vulnerabilities. He recognizes his own sorrow, and he's affectionate towards her, right? And he's affectionate towards her sister, and he's still sarcastic with Gong Sun Yin. But he's a person. He's an actual person, and it's Zheng from before the entire thing went down 17 years ago. That is his personality. He was a spitfire. He was basically a hooligan, right? A child. He knows emotions. He was happy. He was eating Osmanthus cakes. He was running around the villa, letting it loose. And that is Zheng, right? He's not this cold killing machine. He only became that after the entire tragedy happened. So his personality is still there. It's just buried under these layers of sorrow and grief and anger, really. And another thing I really liked was the way they made the puppet emperor a little cartoonish, but he was still a pitiful character, right? And even though his stupid schemes made me shake my head, at the end of the day, he was really just trying to survive. And I think they wrote it quite well. Like, I really appreciate it because he's as good as dead once he's off the throne, because no emperor wants remnants of the previous factions lying in the shadows, no matter how incompetent the previous guy was. And it was nice to see Chishu's mom, the Tai Fei, basically take charge of the whole situation, override the emperor and all of the big rigs in saving her daughter, because this lady, she has survived the previous regime and is still standing, and her child is still alive and well. She definitely had schemes up her sleeve, and she's now tearing off a benevolent mask, and she's basically protecting her child by standing up and taking charge of the situation. And I think this also drives home the point of how powerless the emperor is in his own home, in his own castle, because he's going around flailing, desperate to gain power just to survive, and it's not working. And you basically had the emperor crying in front of the eunuch's body, and it just shows how the one person who was on his side is gone, and he's very much alone, because he was crying to Wei Yan about how he's been used and he needs protection, but then he was also scheming with the Grand Tutor Li, and he knows that one side has the grandson and one side has the previous crown prince's son, so they both want him off the throne. And that scene of the puppet emperor crying in front of the eunuch's body, it made me feel so heavy after watching his antics the entire show and seeing him throw tantrums and just have a good cry every episode, because he was a child when he was placed on the throne, and Wei Yan controlled him from the shadows this entire time, and he never actually got the chance to live his childhood. He was a more, I'd say, pitiful version of Zheng. Not comparing, there's no comparison, but I do feel like he's truly one of a kind of an emperor, and he does have his moments in the show, and I really love the way the actor played the character, because even when he's sobbing, he's completely snot and all crying. It's never, I'd say it's cartoonish, it is, but you don't feel it's over the top, because in that position, if I were transmigrated into the story, I would cry buckets and be like, why am I being able to live this? Why, if I have power in my hand, why can't I use it? And if I'm without this power, why can't I just stay alive and live out my life? And I think Li Huaiyan saving him, but being very angry because he's very much a lost cause, was actually very good, because he crawled into the throne at the end, right? But he's like, I don't want it. And he's basically given up on being a good emperor, and at this point he's just preserving his own life, and then he loses his marbles at the end, and in his own imagination he's a kind, benevolent emperor who is above all. He is lording over Wei Yan, he's holding the court on his own whims, he's being the emperor that he always wanted to be. Although I did kind of wish that it was Fan Changyu who rescued the puppet emperor, because my good sister barely fought in the second half, but that's for another time. And I did feel like the palace theatrics were a little too drawn out in the second half, because what do you mean everyone attended the court, found out about the rebellion, went back to change, and then re-entered to take charge? Like, didn't the rebel army surround the premise already? How incompetent were Qiming's men? Like, not to mention, there's a whole coup going on in the palace, and the uncle and nephew are busy settling scores in the background. Like, I thought they would get together, fight off Qiming, and then fight amongst themselves, but they literally, while Qiming is being taken care of, they're just fighting amongst themselves. It did not make sense at all, because the emperor has been deposed. There's this person who is technically rightfully heir to the throne. In Bauer is not even there. He's basically in the background somewhere in a village. And I think it would have made more sense if they followed the original plot, and if Zheng and Chang Yu split their forces when Chang Yu went to the palace to secure the premise, and Zheng basically went out, I think it was in the street or somewhere, and he went out to confront Qiming and Wei Yan's people. So it wasn't in the palace premise, it was outside. But the reason why Zheng sent Fan Changyu out was because he wanted her out of harm's way. But when Zheng is surrounded by people, and at the last minute when it feels like Zheng is about to be hit, Fan Changyu comes back last minute to protect him. Like, she is the cavalry, and she was fully prepared to die with him. But that's when Shade's army appears with Gong Sunin and turns the tide, because Zheng knew he had a plan. But Fan Changyu was unaware of that, and she took a proportion of the Xie army to protect the palace. And to her, it was like, he's going to die, I have to protect him. And I think it would have worked out well budget-wise as well, because they'd only need to cover enough people to have that small area surrounded, and maybe add a few extras to make it seem a little bit grand. But over here, you have this super large palace complex, and there are two different armies marching straight to the Emperor's chamber without encountering any kind of major obstacles. And it's just so empty. I guess it's empty because there's a coup going on, but still, it was quite empty. I think, did they change it to avoid the aftermath? Because I did remember, Chang Yu hands Zheng a piece of her hair to complete their marriage rituals, because now they can find each other in the next life. And it's a thing during the battle, because she doesn't say it explicitly, she just hands him something, and Zheng takes it, and he completely goes berserk. And then that basically leads to Zheng being all steamy with Fan Changyu once again for an extended period of time. And if you really want to know more about it, read the novel. But yeah, they would have cut down on a lot of the palace theatrics, and maybe if you were cut for time, you could have cut down on Qin being taken away for the nth time, really. The Grand Tutor Li Guy scheming, the Butcher crew being there, and basically most of the whole court intrigue stuff. Because let's be honest, we're not actually watching it for the court intrigues, we're watching it for the actual leads and their story. It is a character-driven story, and it would have made more sense for them to focus on the characters. Like, I get it, the background characters are actually quite interesting for once, and I would have loved to see them had it been a 60-episode drama. I would have loved to see Wei Yan's story fleshed out. I would have loved to see Qin's story fleshed out. Although I'm not gonna lie, I did kind of enjoy the whole emperor thing when he was absolutely fed up with Grand Tutor Li and Wei Yan's fight. Like, that boy went nuclear by saying, I also don't want to be emperor, I want to abdicate. And I genuinely love the actor and his impeccable comedic timing. Although I was actually waiting for Zheng to magically appear when Fan Changyu mentioned she'd have to divorce Zheng in order to marry the emperor, because of how allergic that guy is to the word divorce. Like, the opportunity was right there. But anyways, I did kind of like the way the whole story kind of reiterated the fact that Zheng and Wei Yan were basically cut from the same cloth. Like, I think the same goes for Zheng's mum too. Like, they were all Xie family's kids, and they all fall in love all the way and fall apart once the other half is gone. Like, we saw in the flashback when Zheng was basically a mini Wei Yan. Like, and maybe that's why once Wei Yan understood the consequences of his actions, he decided to mold Zheng into becoming less like his past self and more like his current self. And Zheng really was Wei Yan's pride and joy. And I think the same goes for the old emperor and the puppet emperor. Like, they were both cut from the same cloth. Like, yes, the puppet emperor was a little foolish. He didn't have the same autonomy. He didn't have the same power. What's to say he didn't turn out like the old emperor? Like, in the alternate universe, even the benevolent and the kind crown prince, Chang the crown prince, ended up following his father's footsteps. And like, he did try to use the trick of putting false defilement charges to assert power too. So he is basically his father's son. And I think it's the same way Fan Changyu and her mum were cut from the same cloth. Because if I remember correctly, Meng Lihua was the daughter of great General Meng Shuyan, and Wei Qiling, Fan Changyu's dad, ended up marrying into the Meng family. So Fan Changyu's mum and Fan Changyu both ended up having matriarchal husbands. And I doubt Changning can have Bao marry into a family because, he's the emperor and everything. But never say never. He is more than happy to hand over the entire country, the realm, to Changning just to have her marry as the empress. So never say never. But I did kind of wish that Fan Changyu ended up using Meng Changyu rather than Wei Changyu, because A, her dad married into the Meng family, so the kids would have the Meng surname, right? And B, being associated with the man that basically forced her parents to commit suicide, even by surname, wasn't really pleasant to hear. I think even though the whole past thing, his actions weren't really because of his actions, it was basically a domino effect started by what he said, but he did indirectly facilitate her parents' death. And it would have been more nice to hear him say Meng Changyu, a great general's granddaughter. But ironically, I think the only person who was opposite of their parents was Qiming, because his father, the crown prince Chang De, was quite indecisive and lacked cunning, right? But his son Qiming was resolute and extremely cunning. Even in the alternate universe, when his father ends up becoming more guarded against the crown prince and basically follows his father's footsteps, he's still quite indecisive, right? And I think the only people in the royal family that actually turned out to be sane and reliable were the only ones who grew up without their father. So like the grand princess and Yubawa were both brought up by their mums, right? Their father didn't really have an involvement, and I guess that's saying something. And completely unrelated, but I absolutely love the scene transitions throughout the series, like Zheng honey trapping the customers to sell pork from morning to night, the way the scene transitioned, and Fan Changyu, Li Huan and the gang sitting in the pavilion making Fan Changyu understand military plans, like how the camera pans around and passes time every time they go around a pillar from morning to evening to night. And then there's Fan Changyu running inside because she doesn't want to play dress up with the princess, but emerges in the evening fully dressed, implying it took them a long time to convince Changyu to change and then finally physically put the dress on. It was funny. Although I do wish they would have had a scene of Zheng actually seeing Fan Changyu all dressed up for the first time. And maybe the princess asks her, does she look pretty? And Zheng would have been like, she's always looked pretty. I mean, a girl can dream, right? Although they did keep the scene of Songyan meeting General Fan Changyu and Marquess of Wuhan Zheng, so I will give them a pass for that because I genuinely enjoyed that scene and it fit so perfectly. Even though it was rewritten from the original scene, it did fit quite perfectly with the story. And I also enjoyed how they added depth to Wei Yan and didn't make him a caricaturish villain. Like the scene with Wei Xuan, because we later realized that Wei Yan saw his old subordinate in Wei Xuan, and that's why he gave him that soft smile that yes, you're all grown up now, your dad would be at peace. That's not his son, that is his subordinate's son. And I'm so glad that they changed Li Huan's story and actually made him choose the right side, because I guess it kind of irked me of how he was going around seeing the devastation and still supported his family in the antics, like tying Li Huan directly to He Jingwen and having him see the consequences of his family's action and finally wake him up actually made much more sense. And I think that scene of Li Huan standing in front of He Jingwen's memorial tablet and burning the mourning poems for the Grand Tutor Li and Wei Yan and basically being reborn from the ashes, let go of his family's ambition, and he is ready to fight for justice and be the people's champion. And that scene still gives me chills. And so does Li Huan's confrontation with his grandfather and him finally understanding that bad is bad. And no matter who wins the fight between the Wei and Li families, the eventual losers is going to be the common people, right? And they're all pretending to be the champions of the common people when really they're just praying for everybody's downfall, just so they can keep the lights on in their own households. Although I absolutely loved the battle scenes, especially Fan Changyu's, because she actually looked like she could fight. And even though they were far and few in between, technically we're supposed to be war drama, right? But the tranquility of Linan town and then the eventual destruction of it, I think was kind of poetic, and that makes me feel okay that we didn't really see that much wars because we already saw the destruction first-handedly, right? And given the episode restriction and the fact that there's really not much time left, they did the best that they could, and the war scenes were shot beautifully. And it made more sense because Fan Changyu didn't want to be a general. She just wanted to gather her own townspeople and then bring them back. She wasn't in it for the glory. She wasn't in it for the fights. She hated killing people. And to her, life was precious, right? And she was only fighting for the people that she loved. But then He Jingwen happened and the whole thing kind of became her responsibility, because if she didn't defend the city, if she didn't defend this frontier, the consequences of this would reach to her own people as well. So for her to turn back and join the fight herself, for her to understand that wars might be bad, but then there's also the fact of it's not just you, it's the other person as well. Even if you're being merciful, even if you're letting go of the whole thing, the other side might not be as benevolent and they might use it as an opportunity to one-up you. And I think that was really nice. And I did like the scene until they killed Mandi, and I was like, why would you do that? And then 2 seconds later they forgot about him. Like, I swear to God, like Fan Changyu was cooking for the entire garrison as if the youngest of a ragtag group hadn't been killed horrifically 2 days ago, and it just didn't make sense. And Mandi was basically forgotten until the last few minutes actually, when they went back to Linan town. And why would you show me the destruction of the horrific night once again? I was so taken aback, and I I feel so stuffy when I was watching all of those people welcome back Fan Changyu into the village, because she really wanted to see all of these people happy and living in the town, but these people no longer existed because they were horrifically taken. And honestly, I thought it was Fan Changyu's dream, but then it turned out to be reality that they really did go back to Linan town in their incognito outfit, because I think they didn't really want anyone to know about who they are, so they can still stay as Fan Changyu and her husband, because news travels slow in far out towns, right? So it could have been like nobody knows about Fan Changyu yet. But anyways, that's my prerogative on the whole thing. But and then this damn snowfall, like always happening when shit's about to go down, and the moment the snowflakes start falling, I was like, yes, something's going to happen, and it does happen. And while I'm glad that they decided to adapt the alternate universe side of the story, I would have appreciated it more had it been focused more on Zheng and Fan Changyu, because I kid you not, there's a legit whole arc where Zheng treats Fan Changyu as a junior sister because, you know, they've grown up together. But then he sneaks off into the battlefield, and when he gets back home, he starts getting annoyed by all the boys that are courting her. And eventually Fan Changyu goes to her grandfather, the great General Meng, on the battlefield, and they get caught up, and basically the grandfather is injured. So Fan Changyu takes charge, draws the military away from them, and falls down a cliff, defending the city to save her grandfather and everybody else. And she's not to be found anywhere, right? Zheng gets to know about it. He goes to the palace, meets the crown prince, gets a decree, runs off, and basically looks for Fan Changyu like a madman. And when he finds her, he immediately proposes to her. Like, I kid you not. And not to mention, in the alternate universe storyline, Fan Changyu basically becomes Zheng. When she falls off the cliff, she ends up in the river. She's found by the Zhao couple, and they care for her. And Zheng walks into the courtyard, and Fan Changyu is there injured. And when he's like, I found you, and she's like, I feel like I had a dream. And in the dream, I had a fiance. And Zheng immediately is like, let's go back to the capital. I am getting married to you before anyone swoops in, and basically this imaginary fiance of yours comes back and marries you. It was really funny, but it kind of reiterated that Zheng is Zheng in every universe, and Fan Changyu is Fan Changyu in every universe. Like, she is born to be a general, and he is born to be with her. Not to mention, the alternate storyline could have been Wei-Yan's imagination, as he's lingering on his deathbed after having the poison wine. Only the thing is, he imagines everybody but not the one person that he loved, and that's when he realizes that, you know, there's no next life for him, and he dies. And then there's like 5 years later, and, you know, we see Fan Changyu and Zheng on the battlefield once again. I don't know, it would have made more sense, I think, rather than being a separate side story and then ending on Chiming of all people. Like, when I say I have words, and I think a classic example of this whole thing is like watching Chiming's entire arc, right? His struggles, pain, obsession, mania, and eventual end, while completely sidelining Zheng's suffering. Like, his turmoil upon learning Fan Changyu's origins, his heartache, eventual acceptance of his love for Fan Changyu, and even his eventual punishment of himself. Like, he imposed those strikes on himself originally just so he could go and ask Fan Changyu to be his wife, rightfully his wife, without feeling like he's betraying his father or his family, because he's done something bad and he feels like he has to atone for it. And I think I was really looking forward to seeing Zheng's side of the story, because Linan town was Fan Changyu, right? While we did have flashbacks of Zheng's story, we didn't actually see it. And while he was in Linan town, we saw the scenes of when he was attacked, and, you know, we see him carrying this burden. We see him fighting tooth and nail as a child, surviving in his uncle's household after his entire family has been wiped off. And we see this turmoil as a child, but we never see his turmoil as an adult, especially after he finds out that the one person who was supposed to be on his side, this one person that has endured life and death with him, that has come to him at a time when he himself had given up on himself, is a part of the reason why his family is no longer there. Like, that would have been much more powerful, and it would have made much more sense, because they have to be apart anyways, right? Fan Changyu and Zheng weren't really together after they left Linan town. So since they have to be apart, why not actually make it meaningful? Why not actually give this distance a meaning and actually have them explore their feelings? Because I feel like we sort of sidelined Zheng's feelings in the second half. I mean, it's genuinely, it is Fan Changyu's story, right? I completely understand that, but like I said, it's also a character-driven story. They both have their motivations. They're both people who have endured tragedy in their lives. Fan Changyu was on autopilot. She was basically running on fumes because she had her sister behind her. She had to take care of her. For Zheng, there was nobody behind him. He was all alone and he was fighting tooth and nail to survive in this world when his mum left him. Oh, that's what he thought. And I just feel like it would have been so much better. And I do feel like that is such a missed opportunity. And I feel like that is something that can easily sum up the second half of whatever this arc is after they left Lenan town. It had so much potential. Even in the 40 episodes constraint that they had, it actually had so much potential. But they kind of went around after so many people. They kept chasing so many characters. Like, why was Su and Ching running off every 2 episodes? How slippery was this guy actually? Why is Chen Jin getting kidnapped every 2 episodes? Exactly how smart are Chi Ming's guard that they were able to find this lady and rescue her, but then they weren't able to hold back the guards in the palace? And I think they could have made some sacrifices, who to choose and who not to choose in terms of explaining the storylines. And it would have worked so much better. But what we have is also good enough. And I do appreciate the director. I do appreciate the cast. I do appreciate the writers for giving us this drama, because it is good drama. And like I said, I have absolutely enjoyed watching it. And I'm looking forward to their next project. Like, especially this director, like I said, please lock him up in Hangdian and do not let him out. Because he knows how to create an atmosphere. Even though the scenes kind of felt a little out of place, because a lot of times you had to really scratch your head and figure out who's coming from where and why they're doing what they're doing. But once they start speaking, once they come into frame, you forget about it, right? The scenes that are supposed to be tense actually feel tense. You feel this oppressive weight on you as you're watching it. Like the absolutely beautiful way they frame the scenes, the cinematography, like they use animatronics for the animals, right? And it didn't feel fake, and that tells you a lot about the production. And as someone who's been following the drama since the first announcement came out, since the routers started leaking, since the trailer came out, and since the drama came out, really, I've been watching it every single day. And despite the good and the bad, it is a good drama, and I hope you guys had a blast watching it as much as I did. And I wish someday they would release an uncut version of the drama. Like, I know there are lots of cuts and a lot of deleted scenes as well. And I wish they would have released the whole thing, but I know it's not possible with the episode constraints. And they could have taken a special permission, but it's a costume drama. They wouldn't have gotten it anyways. But yeah, I do wish they release an uncut version in the future. Maybe on Netflix, maybe on DVD. I would buy it. I would watch it. Even if I have to Google Translate every single scene, I would do it. I won't hold my breath for it. But yeah, I hope you guys had a good time watching Pursuit of Jade as much as I did. And I will see you guys next time. Hopefully Love Beyond the Grave lives up to the expectations as well, because I am waiting for the first 10 episodes to drop before I start watching it, because binge watching is so good. But yeah, I hope you guys had a good time watching Pursuit of Jade, Ju, as much as I did, and I would actually love to hear your thoughts on the drama. How did you like it? Was it good? Was it decent? What scenes did you enjoy? How did you like the relationships in the drama? Like, you can reach out to me on Twitter, you can reach out to me on Instagram, you can leave me comments on YouTube, on Spotify. And Talk About Drama podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Amazon Music Podcast, Audible, Substack. And I will see you guys next time. Until then, I hope you guys are happy, safe, and having a good week. Ciao.